G'day YouTube, it's Turbo Tristan here, and in today's episode we're going to be tearing apart this boring engine bay and going all out on the NA mods. New intake plenum, new headers, new radiator, new air intake, new strut tower brace, new silicon radiator hoses, the whole box and dice. We're going to dive into that today. I'm going to start pulling it all to pieces and making a bit of a mess. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We're getting closer and closer to 10,000 subscribers. We're only about 2,000 away now, so hopefully that comes fast so I can hit my goal for 2021 and hit 10K subscribers. In today's video, we will be taking off the intake plenum, sizing this one up. It's for a D16 Y8. We're going to modify it to fit a Y4. We've got all new radiator and heater hoses, a brand new alloy radiator, a strut tower brace, and some headers. And I also have an air intake to go on there as well, but I'll show you that either at the end of this video or in another video once we get it all sorted. So I'm going to get to work in pulling all of this apart now. So it's time-lapse time. Stopped for a dinner break, had some karaage chicken, but yeah, pulled out the radiator, taken off the factory headers. These weigh an absolute ton. I might even chuck them on the scales and see what the difference is between weight. But over here we've got the tiny little radiator versus the big fat alloy one. I'll give a comparison with that soon, but I'm going to take off the intake plenum and the fuel injectors and everything and just get that all sorted out so I can start to clean up the engine bay and do a bit of a wire tark and get all that looking nice, clean up the injectors and yeah, get that all off. I'm most likely going to have to block off some of the ports on that manifold because it's kind of like a one size fits all of the D16 fuel injected cars, so I'm going to have to pull them off, get them side by side, see what fits, what doesn't, what plates I need to make to block things off, get those made up, get them on there and get it all back together. Alrighty, next day I've been to Autobarn and grabbed everything I'm going to need to do a service on the car. Just waiting on the fuel filter to turn up. So new oil filter, new spark plugs, new oil, new coolant. Got some cleaning stuff as well. I had a mate drop around last night, so I just sort of did a few things off camera. I went ahead and I made a couple of plates to block off the manifold. There's a couple of ports that sort of swap over with the EJ8s and the EK1s. Y7, Y8s, Y4s, Y6s, Y5s, all those ones, they're all interchangeable with the manifold, but just depends on where they mount the factory idle air control valve or the air intake temp sensor. So I've made up 2 little plates out of some 3mm alloy, you can see just here, and I've painted them black so that they match this guy. So I'm going to get those on, put a bit of sealant around there. I'll get the camera onto a tripod so I can use both hands. I've got everything sorted out for the radiator. Now I've done a full install and how to install and change a radiator on your Civic before on my channel, so check that video out. But just quickly, this is the old one. It's got a really tiny little, like it's as thick as my finger, radiator core and a really massive fan, whereas this one's white thick and has a slimline thermo fan. So this is definitely going to be a lot better. The reason for the change is just peace of mind. This one's all been sort of, it's not damaged as far as I can tell, but it's really small and all of the fins are bent and you would never straighten those out. And I just want it to be running nice and cool because hot engines kill head gaskets and we definitely don't want that. So nice, reliable setup for the next owner. We've changed out all of the radiator hoses, so they're going back in. I've swapped the plugs over, so this bolts onto the factory position with the factory plug, so that's ready to go in. The headers are ready to go. The strut brace is ready to go. And this is where I got up to. Everything's all pulled apart. The intake ports on the car were nice and clean, so nothing to really worry about there. I've taken the injectors and given them a clean up with a Scotch-Brite pad so they look brand new, cleaned everything out, cleaned the little filters inside the top there, so they're sweet. I also went down to Elusive Racing today in my travels and grabbed a nylon gasket. So this replaces the factory one, it's reusable, and it also stops heat as well. So this will keep the air intake temps low, and also nice solid gasket, great for boost in the future, whatever you want to do with it. So we're going to stick that on. Got that from Elusive Racing. So this is the MAXPEEDINGRODS intake manifold. It's a similar design to the skunk manifolds. Being that it's universal, it has a plate there for the idle air control valve and one on the side, just like the skunk manifolds, for the air temp sensor or inlet temp sensor. I do need to get a couple of block offs because we're not going to be using every single one of these ports. We'll be using a vacuum one and a breather one. So I'll need to block off the opposite one of those and block off the other vacuum port on the back. What I'm going to do now is get some silicone on that, tighten down the bolts, put the gasket and all the manifold on, and that'll be sweet. That'll be one job off the checklist. Then I'll go do the radiator and then the headers and the strut brace, and that'll be most of the engine bay sorted. Now I did actually do a full video on how to change your intake plenum on my channel earlier this year, where I used a genuine skunk 2 manifold and replaced that on a D16 Y4, which again is the same as a Y8. That was on one of the subscriber cell, his car. So we did that for him and I showed a full comparison, the differences between them, the length from here to here, port sizes. We did everything, all of these different sensor ports. So we went over all of that. If you want to know how to change your intake manifold, check back on one of the earlier videos that I did on that. It's got quite a lot of views, picture of me holding the 2 manifolds side by side. You can't miss it. Just fitting up the gasket now. You can see it's on there. A little tip, because this water port here is right next to the intake port, it's probably a good idea, and I've heard a few people doing it, putting some water sealant around there just to stop any chance of any water getting into the intake manifold or into the cylinder head. So that's all done now. Nice thermal layer there, so it'll insulate the intake against the cylinder head temps. So I'm going to slap all that back together now. Really simple. There was a bracket that goes on under here. I've taken it off because it gets in the road of everything. Weight reduction, race mods, there it is there. so it's not going back on. The new MAXPEEDINGRODS intake plenum is, so I'll chuck it back on a time lapse and we'll slam that thing back in the car. Well, it's pretty late at night and I've made quite a bit of mess. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna show of me working on the car in the time lapse. What do you guys think? Are time lapses boring? Are they too much? Do I do it too much? Not enough? Do you want to see me work in real time or a time lapse? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments below. Behind me is where I'm up to. Quite a bit of stuff done. Still not finished, but check it out. That is an update on the engine bay. I've got a mess absolutely everywhere, but the headers are in. I've just put this rocker cover on for now. I painted it a few weeks ago. It was actually donated by my friend Gary. It's a Mugen rocker cover, keeping with the eBay theme. I'm pretty sure that one's fresh off eBay. So what I'm probably going to do is repaint this again and put some clear coat on. I haven't done that yet. But as you can see, I put the MAXPEEDINGRODS strut tower brace on and the MAXPEEDINGRODS intake plenum on. Now that all fitted up just fine. One thing I will say to MAXPEEDINGRODS, if you're watching, just leave a little bit more room here and here and here for the bolts to go on. It was a little bit tight. I'm not sure what these extra little nubs are for, but I guess that's what happens when you get something and you copy it. They copy it exactly, so no one could ever blame MAXPEEDINGRODS or any other eBay copy for anything, because they actually go and buy a skunk manifold and basically copy it from there. So the feedback I'm giving the guys today would be to probably stamp your own logo in there, just like this, but MXR. Take a little bit more care in machining the surfaces where you put the nuts on the intake manifold, and also a little bit more care of making sure these water fittings and air fittings are in there securely. I've put some steel epoxy in there so it won't move and it won't leak, so that's all sweet. Another thing, I had to modify the accelerator cable bracket. I sort of flipped it upside down and backwards, giving me a bit more length here. Nice and slack, snaps back to closed, you can hear that. I've also cleaned up all of the injectors inside and out and given them a good scrub up with Scotch-Brite, cleaned off the fuel rail, got rid of that stupid plastic thing that sits above here and hides all the wires. I've rewrapped all the wires in electrical tape and tucked them, so that's a wire tuck. I've gotten rid of the wires here. I've sort of just bunched all this sort of stuff away that was sitting on brackets and clips here and here. So that's all gone. Radiator's in. Washer bottle just goes in the factory spot. With these hoses, they do give you like quite a fair bit extra length. I had to cut almost 30 or 40 millimeters or 1.5 to 2 inches of extra length off there, otherwise it wouldn't seal properly. And same on this end, they got the hose exactly right, except there was another kink over this way, so I'm not sure why. I do have to give it a twist on the bottom there so it sits up in its carrier just here. But otherwise, that's all sweet. What do you guys think of the intake? I didn't show much of that. I picked that up off Marketplace, off another guy who's right into Hondas, Thomas Saar. A lot of you guys will know his car. He's got a 10-second EK, makes tons and tons of power. This is a genuine K&N Typhoon air intake. He actually got this piece remade for me. It's secured there with a bracket so it won't go anywhere, it won't knock or rattle. And we've got a genuine K&N pod there. Nice and high, tucked up in the bumper, out of harm's way. A true cold air intake, not a hot air intake. Another thing, the plug here for the extractors or headers. Not really sure what I'm going to do. I might have to just go to the wreckers and get a couple of extra plugs and make a jumper and run the wire back over here, because the O2 sensor's right back here at the collector now, which is not an issue for me to do. I'll do that. It just means that I can't start the car up and rev the guts out of it and straight pipe it at the moment. And I'm also waiting on a fuel filter, and then once I've got that, I'll do a proper service on everything. I will need to buy some extra gaskets for here. I'll replace this gasket and make it all nice. It's just sitting on there now so I can get an awesome thumbnail. But what do you think of the color scheme? I had this in my mind from day one when we first got this car. Black, silver, and fluoro. Engine bay with, you know, the alloy accents. Same with the brakes, wheels, all of that. So my idea and my dream in my head is coming together. It's going to plan eventually. We've got a surprise happening in the next couple of days with the roof and the bonnet. We're really modernizing the car and going with a modern trend, not something that's been done a billion times before. Because of the new air intake, I actually used a bit of the MAXPEEDINGRODS fuel hose. It's just rubberized fuel hose EFI braid in the inside, and I just cut it to length, wrap the ends in tape so it won't fray. Used the original elbow here and a little section of the steel rod that used to cross over, and made a little adapter, so that's sweet. I really hope you enjoyed this video. We got a lot done today. I'm smashing out the content now for you guys. We've fully bolt-on modified an EK single cam D16 in one episode. So I hope you appreciate that. A lot of work went into that. 2 days work after work at night. Headers, strut brace, intake manifold, rocker cover, air intake, radiator. We haven't done the full exhaust yet. That's coming. Can't do that right now. I've got to get a cat and a couple of mufflers. So I'm thinking about taking the car to an exhaust shop, getting a high flow cat and a mild steel 2¼ inch exhaust system made up. Just so it's quicker, easier, and won't cost the world, and I can get it smashed out. What do you think about using this? This came with the car. It's a HKS Power muffler. It's the Canon style, and it's a little bullet. It's not very big. It's not gonna muffle much, which means I'm gonna have to put a pretty decent length hot dog in the middle, or some kind of decent muffler in the middle of the car. Or should I just sell this on Marketplace? Let me know what you think I should do with the exhaust. After that's done, and this is all sorted, and I finish painting the rocker cover and the front lip spoiler, it's back to putting all of the car back together, installing the tacho, changing all the globes and everything in the cluster, doing the speakers, putting the trim back together, fully detailing the car, and then unveiling it, finally finished. So I hope you really enjoy the content. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before Christmas 2021. Don't forget, spool up, and we'll see you in the next video.